Right. So while they are getting set up, let's see if it works now. It's the next presentation. Yeah, you can all get your smartphones out because we're planning a bit of an interactive session where we would like you to give feedback while we talk. So let's do that. Okay. No, it's not up on the screen. We need to do something.
Can you put this? The presentation mode.
So you can either do a quick QR scan with something like Scambot, or you can just type in the bit.ly address. It's both fine. I'll just give you a few seconds for that. Quite a number of QR readers, and everybody says it's dead. Okay, so I can see a few heads looking down on their phones, so I guess they have opened the Google Forms. Okay, we'll show it when we start anyway. Is that too loud if I put it that close? Okay, well, I'll just start then. So, yeah, my name is Thomas, this is Christoph, so we're very happy to welcome you here in the Inovex offices, and we would like to talk a bit about what are data products and why they're different from other products. So, for a quick introduction, what do you think these people have in common? A lot of cash, yes, that's very true. Actually, they have as much cash as the GDP of New Zealand, which is, I think it's a small country, but it's in the upper quarter of countries worldwide in terms of GDP. So it's something like 40 billion each for the Alphabet guys. Bezos has about 70. Elon is about to $28 billion. But that's actually not what I wanted to get at. So I'll give you a quick hint. Okay, and now we are in the PDF mode, so you can read the hint. Okay, well, never mind. So you were not supposed to see the line below, but now you guessed it. They all build their businesses around data products. So obviously Alphabet with Google, they use your surf history and your search history especially to serve you data product, their advertising. Amazon started out as an e-commerce site, but really they grew big when they were able to offer you the recommender stuff, so they could recommend you what you bought, they could recommend what you would like to buy additionally, and obviously now they're a super big data product company in terms, for example, with the AWS, the web service system. Elon Musk, who started out with PayPal, and now into Tesla, which I'll describe in a minute in detail, and Foursquare, which actually started out as a B2C company, and now they've made a really big move into being a location provider, actually. So they have all the location information from all the people that use Foursquare, and they now offer an SDK that you can plug into your app, and they can predict from that data that they get. They offer, on the one hand, very precise location data that you can use if you're an app provider, and serve ads, for example. But they also use that information, for example, to predict stock markets. So, for example, they I think to a below 10% significance, they predicted the sales of the iPhone for each iteration, just because of foot traffic that they gathered. So they all build their businesses around data products. And there are quite a few more, so I'll not go into all the details, but for example, Thermomix is among the top 20 crossing apps in terms of revenue in Germany. Or Strava, which allows you to upload your training data, measure yourself against competitors, and especially measure yourself while you get better physically. Or you have something like Davanda. Yeah, you can read them for yourself. So it's a really big market. So we are of the opinion in our hypothesis that data products are different than traditional products. And for that hypothesis, obviously, there are some subsequent questions. Should product management processes be adapted to these special needs that come along with data products? And is there a need for a new product management methods, or can I apply the existing ones just in a different way? And for that hypothesis, we did some research. We had interviews with employees, for example, from some German companies like Otto, Xing, Mobility, or Eventim in the roles of product owners, product managers, data scientists. A student wrote his bachelor thesis together with us on this topic, and obviously we're a consulting, IT consulting company. We got some experiences from our projects. And today we would like to present you with some of these findings. But first, for the first directive part, let me know what you think about the hypothesis that data products are different than traditional products. Okay, I see most of the heads looking up again. So, what is a data product? What's the definition of data product? We actually classify data products into 3 types. So, there's a data as a service, a data enhanced product, and data as insight. What does that mean? In data as a service, I just have the raw information data, like the raw data that I use as information. For example, weather data. I gather it, I present it, that's it. It's just the weather data. And I get the value, or I get the revenue actually from just that data in terms of pieces and a price, right? I have the very traditional setting in that regard. Then I have a data enhanced product. For example, the autonomous driving in the Tesla. So I have a main product, that's the car, but it only really works, or it only makes sense if I have a data enhanced product on top of it. So I sell the Tesla because of his autonomous driving skills. And I actually don't make any money off the data product. I still make the money off the typical car. But I use the data product to position the car, the original product, as a forward-looking and even better product. And I have data as insight. That might get confused with business analytics and big data in general. But how we differentiate it is that we really say data as insight is if I not only look at the data that I have internally in my own company, but I actually use external data sources as well. For example, Reckitt Benckiser is a pharmaceutical company. They use external data that they get from WebMD, where people can enter if they can enter the symptoms, and they can then see if they got the flu or anything like that. So WebMD has some real-time data on the changes of illnesses. And Reckitt Benckiser uses that data, which is zip code specific, and improves their ad targeting. So they only serve their ads online to those regions where there's an increase in flu. Right? And then they can sell more flu medicine. So here I actually make the money, and that I increase efficiency. So these are how we describe the product types, the data product types. What do you think about that? So we actually asked that very same questions in our interviews, and what we got to is that in terms of the data as an insight, there are some differences in the interpretation. Some people really don't see that this is a special data product type. They more see it as being part of a big data analytics, business analytics world. So that's a bit of a difference. But in general, when we ask them, is that helpful for you, this distinction? They said it's been very helpful. So, and we think especially that it's helpful in describing different revenue sources that you have in the data product. And also, if you look into these types, you can improve the idea finding, the idea generation for new products, especially for new data products.
Now that we come to the processes and methods which are relevant for data products, I come into play and I get to the next half of the presentation. So what we did in order to get a little bit more in details if product management has to change in comparison to if you want to develop data products, we looked at the classical product management cycle and looked at the strategic side, the technical side, and the go-to-market side of product management. And then we focused somehow on the strategic side in order to get a first starting how different are the phases within the product management cycle. And so we looked. Now it's getting louder. So we looked at all these different phases, identify, defining a value proposition, these kind of things, and looked, is that actually different? And the first thing which we looked into was how do we identify problems? And how does that differ between classical product management and data product management? And what we found is in classical product management we have all sorts of problems which we can solve, while with data products you only can solve things which you can solve with information basically. And we have two types of information which we found, which is one kind of information supports you on a rational, cognitive level, the other sort supports you on a social side. So when you go more into detail of this, you can see if you define or if you look for a problem of a customer, you should either look into, does your customer have a decision problem? Does he need to decide anything? My classical example for this is a trader who wants to buy shares and stocks and this kind of things. So he needs the index information of the different stocks in order to make the decision if he buys now or later, or if he sells now or later. Then you can calculate option prices, all these kinds of things, and it's worthwhile for you to pay for the data in order to make better decisions if to buy or sell a stock. And the more timely you get that information, so we're now by, I think in the millisecond way, where you still pay for that kind of information. When you're in a 15-minute kind of distance from the actual stock notation, you don't pay anything for it anymore. So this somehow differentiates you. So you get two kinds of usage of information. The one is, are you using it somehow, and are you willing to pay for it? And what we see is, if you have something which supports decisions, you are willing to pay for it. But if you have information which supports your social interaction, you are willing to use it. We have this, I don't know if you know the Xing option, who has visited your profile, and most people will pay for the premium package just to know how many people have actually visited your page. That's just out of curiosity. And this is exactly one of the cases which we have here. If you have social interaction, curiosity, entertainment, those are the things which kind of make you use the product, but you're less willing to pay for it. I think LinkedIn never tried to get any money for showing you who has visited your profile. They rather use the data you provide in different things. They, for example, support the selling process. They are more into the B2B market, while Xing still tries to get money out of this curiosity stuff and then update it with HR stuff and so on. So yeah, this is what we found. This is how we think things are different. And yeah, this is also the question which I want to pose to you. Yeah. In the interviews we found some more insights on that, and have also a recommendation for you. So what we found when interviewing all these different product managers of data products, most people focus on products who support decisions. And I mean, I don't know how many of you are in the product management who has defined a data product maybe? Anybody in the room? Or more or less, yeah. I don't know how your experience is. So probably if you analyze data, it's most of the time to support decisions. But what we find interesting is that most people do not consider systematically the way how to get usage into my product in order to get some kind of feedback on how my product performs actually, and use it to increase the significance of the product. So what we actually recommend is to define your product based on the decisions you're supporting, the problems the customer had, but to also systematically look into how can I increase usage of my product by providing value add in a social way, let's say. Then we looked at the second thing. This is the positioning. So the question, what is the unique selling proposition, the USP of your product? And again, if you look into traditional products, you find most people use something like the value proposition canvas in order to define the problem. So they look at the customer jobs, and then they look at the pains and gains, and then they define somehow what could my product solve, which kind of jobs of the customer could my product solve, basically. So this is how people define your USP, and either you get that particularly good or well, then or you get it bad, and either way, either you have a good selling product or a bad selling product. If you look at how could you define a USP for a data product, we are somehow in a different world, because most of the data gets copied quite easily. But which kind of data cannot be copied is transaction data. I have made here an example from Google Maps. The quality of the picture is less good as I posted it into my PowerPoint. JPEG compression algorithm. I posted here the master data of this location. Yeah. What we find is that master data, in particular map information, is hard to obtain, but it's not impossible. You can, if some of you might know OpenStreetMap, you can organize a community of people who provides you the master data of a particular location. Yeah, you can get all the information, where are the houses, where are the streets. This is more, it's difficult to obtain, and in particular also the pictures of the streets and houses, but you can do it if you have a lot of money. What is really very, very difficult to obtain is to get the transaction data. Where are people at the specific moment, and how many people are there? Is there a traffic jam or not? This kind of things. So this is something Google actually manages really well, and which is also represented then and used in the Tesla. They put this map into the Tesla. I don't have anybody of you have been driven with a Tesla? That's really great. You have the Google Maps there. You can make routing information. You can route you, and it takes into account the traffic information. I'm not driving a Tesla, so I can just use a mobile phone to do that. But that's really great if you have it on the big screen. So this makes Google Maps one of the most used apps in the United States, because you have this transaction data, which is unique, and nobody else. There are the telcos who have the transaction data of people, and that's it. Yeah. So there are not many people who have actually this. So you should look into transaction data if you want to define a unique value proposition for your data product. And the way to do this basically is feedback. Yeah. If you encourage your users to use your product, and you capture what people are doing with your product, and you feed it back, then they are encouraged to use it more. So this is some of the findings we had, that this makes the adoption of a product particularly worthwhile. we have a very old example of LinkedIn where they give you back the information who has visited your profile, or there's this other feature when you rate the skills of people, you're encouraged to rate more skills because all the time they post you more skills of other people, and the more you are rating other people on their skills, you get more rated on your own skills, yeah, which is also kind of a feedback loop in order to increase the number of skills which are rated. And how do they sell it afterwards? They ask the HR persons, what do you need? Oh, they need skills in order to search for people, and the more skills are rated and rated in a particular way, the more they get from the HR people. So they have an interesting, let's say, business model consideration. They made you to give them feedback how other people perform on certain issues, and then they sell that information to HR in order for the headhunters to find you, basically. Again, with Google Maps, you are encouraged to switch on the location tracer as they provide you with this kind of traffic information, this kind of thing. So, and there are many more examples how successful data products use this particular feedback loop in order to make their product more addictive. And then we sort of, how can we support product managers to define a feedback loop? And then we thought, we can simply invert the value proposition canvas, and we can say, company, you are now the customer of the users, and the usage of the users becomes the product. So you could look at how many jobs you have, which kind of jobs have you posted. Like in the LinkedIn case, the HR people who pay LinkedIn posted them the question, how can we get better skills? So that is a job basically to be done by LinkedIn. Pains and gains again. And then they thought, how can product usage of my customer support this? And then they came up with this kind of gamified version of Hot or Not, let's say. Yeah? So this is the method proposal which we have in order to support defining your feedback loops. Again, we want to ask you how you like this idea. And what we found in the interviews is that, again, there's a big difference between product manager. There are those who are into the marketplace area, like, let's say an example, mobile.de, who has for a lot of years done marketplace, two-sided model ideas, different types of customers. They find this kind of idea to systematically look at the feedback and include it into the product in order to increase the USP of the product. They liked it, let's say, and they had experience with it. Then there are the other part of the product managers who couldn't actually really do something with it. So here, in this case, the opinion about the method and the question we want to answer was quite differentiated between good and not so accepted. Anyway, we think it's sensible to look at the feedback loop and include these ideas into the product definition from the beginning. And if the inverted value proposition canvas is the right method, that's up to you, basically. If it helps you, then it helps you. But at least you should look into it. And I want to remind you that social interaction is a particularly good value proposition in order to encourage users to give you feedback on something and use the product. So you can basically use it in order to speed this up. We looked into many more processes, which I don't have in detail here due to time restrictions, and yeah, you can find more information on this continuously on our blog. But just as a pointer, data security is of course the main issue which a data product manager should be well aware of. Nothing new here, PII information, different laws in different countries, all this is something which should be part of the Werkzeugkasten, the toolbox of the data product manager. Again, here we have a specific process in order to identify the data which you're using, so that you look which kind of data is available in my company, which is not available in the quality which I have, which kind of data might be sourced from other companies. How can I use the ecosystem? As in the Foursquare case, we see there are a lot of companies who already provide services in order to enhance the data you have. So you should have some strategic perspective of identify data as well. And then there are some of the classical product management processes which you should somehow adapt or look at in a different way. If you have the portfolio strategy, you can deploy different products in order to fill the entire picture. The persona is somehow different, as not all of the users of your product are also customers, which might be different. So you should look at how can I motivate people to use my product, and how can I motivate them to buy my product and pay me for it. So these are kind of things which you should consider, and which are somehow different to the traditional way of doing things. Yeah, basically to sum up, what we found here is that we have defined this categorization of data products, which should encourage you to look at the data you have in different ways, and support you in coming up with new ideas, which kind of products you can build. The pure data services, enhance some kind of service, or use it as an insight. Then we have the positioning, differentiation between decision support and social interaction, also to encourage creativity and findings, and maybe as an input for the last insight into the feedback loop, how to create a unique value proposition, something, a USP basically. Thank you.